I had been caring for my terminally ill mother before she died. After she died, I was exhausted both physically and mentally. Furthermore, I was still battling to maintain my profession, deal with my mother's death, and receive assistance from my family. I had laid down on top of my bed to take a quick snooze since I was concerned about catching a viral infection. Something happened on a Friday afternoon, 4 days after Mom died and 1 day after she was buried. Following this event, I awoke on Monday believing it was still Friday. Despite the fact that it appeared like a split second, I had been out for 3 nights and 2 days. I had worked in the field of aircraft electronics for 10 years and had a high security clearance. I did not take any medications or engage in any recreational drug use. Because of my family's violent religious struggle, I was not religious and even rejected religion. Despite the fact that I regarded myself to be open-minded, my political and social convictions were very conservative. The cleric sent in to console my mother in her last moments was turned down. She desired to live out her Lutheran beliefs in private. She was persecuted and mocked as an ethnic German by Hebrew Americans when she went to America as a reluctant war bride after World War II. She was awarded citizenship in 1950. My brothers and I had inherited her contempt for religious zeal, but I was the only one who refused to endorse one religion over another. My mother was forced to marry a Jewish guy, and one of my 3 brothers had reverted to being a devout Christian. The other 2 brothers were Jewish and agnostic. With the exception of my mother, no one in my family ever attempted to maintain a covenant or be religiously devout unless it was for their own benefit or prestige, such as obtaining Sundays off from work or using their faith to gain access to those in positions of power. My mother had clairvoyant abilities. We could communicate without using words from a distance. One such occurrence occurred roughly 9 years ago, when my mother was going by bus from Scottsdale to Laughlin, Nevada. I had spent the night at a friend's house. My mother normally gets home around 8 p.m. This was before cell phones were widespread. She wouldn't have known who to contact if I hadn't been home. After waking up at 1 a.m. from a deep sleep, I noticed something was amiss with my mother. I couldn't help but feel compelled to get in my car and search for her. I called her house even though I knew she wasn't there when I woke up, but she didn't answer. I woke up a buddy and begged her to accompany me because I was terrified. We took the automobile from Tempe to Scottsdale. I drove straight to the Safari Inn on Scottsdale Road in Old Town, despite the fact that I had no idea where her bus picked her up, dropped her off, or which line it was on. I'd never gone to this location before, yet I felt drawn there. Several passengers were standing towards the front of a large tour bus. I knew my mom was inside. I quickly parked and entered. My mother was in the foyer, along with around 25 to 30 other people who had just arrived from the Arizona desert, where the bus had broken down for hours. When she spotted me, she smiled. She didn't ask how I got there or why I was there at 1:30 a.m. She shrugged and stated that the heat in the bus when it broke down on the highway had caused her to want to remove her wig. She mentioned that she would probably pick her next business partner more carefully. She told me to keep going and return to my starting location. I asked if she was sure she was okay because I still had a lingering sensation of dread. She confirmed that her car was outside while they waited for bags. She shoved me away once more. My friend who was there said it was fantastic, so I went back to Tempe. My companion felt that was weird, so I inquired about it with my mom a few days later. I had no idea that others felt the same way I did. Mom and I had that even if we weren't very close physically or emotionally. Let's go back to the Friday afternoon after her burial, when I went to bed. I don't usually nap, but I felt compelled to do so because I was fatigued and severely sleep deprived. I'll repeat myself, I wasn't religious. What I went through and what I remembered when I awoke were not stated religiously. I didn't mourn my mother's death because I saw it as a reprieve from the physical pain she had undergone while battling blood cancer for 6 months. I wasn't a religious person. I didn't believe in ghosts, spookiness, the devil, God, Jesus, Buddha, or any other supernatural creature. I didn't believe in ghosts, spookiness, the devil, God, Jesus, Buddha, or any other supernatural being. If I had considered anything, it would have been the physical properties of materials and how severe emotional suffering may give rise to energies that leave a permanent mark. Sensitive people may mistake the presence of ghosts or extraterrestrial entities for a physics event that is not fully understood. I can vividly imagine being forced to snooze and lying down just for a moment. I realized I was on the bed after looking down from the ceiling. This did not feel like a dream, but rather like a conscious realization that I was looking down and awake. I felt like I was floating, like when you're driving fast over a mountain road and suddenly lose all sense of weight. This impression, however, remained for some time. As I looked down, I realized I needed to change my clothes. My 3 cats hung out wherever I was, especially in bed, so I had no idea where they were. Then things lost their meaning. I had the impression that I was about 15 feet above my bed. The needs and reality of the world vanished all at once. I saw myself suddenly ascending through a never-ending, dark void. I felt like I was in a rocket ship as I rose. Fashion, friends, a career, money, and all the other important things in my life became less important as I ascended the social ladder. In reality, they vanished like shells from around my consciousness, leaving only my awareness. I had no artificial identities, egos, or earthly concerns. I was not experiencing or feeling anything that would have led me to believe that this self was tied to the one in the bed. This was the most significant experience in my life because it taught me that everything I have on earth is fleeting and unimportant. I am an amalgamation of energies. I'm at sea. Even though I am an individual, I am also linked to everyone and everything in this other, non-physical world. The subsequent shelling of my consciousness, or thoughts, or reality, whatever you want to call it. I was in complete darkness. I wasn't alone, and I wasn't frightened. There was some light present, as our eyes can see. Our physiological senses were no longer functional in this environment since I was no longer in the physical reality of Earth. Even though I didn't have a body, I was entirely at rest and in perfect harmony. I didn't experience joy, grief, terror, or awe. I was aware of other persons present, yet there was a dearth of emotion and sensation. I knew I was there right away, that I was like them, and that they were also there. It was as though I had just thrown a spoonful of seawater into the sea. Despite the fact that I was conscious that I was an individual, I was now a part of the whole. It sounds ridiculous, yet that's how I feel. Shades of blackness, I'd call it amid this nothingness. The top third of the hooded, robed beings was all I could see, while the remaining 2/3 were absolutely black, like space. There was only immediate knowledge, there were no words. There appeared to be a main being with no gender. They didn't want me to be scared, and I understood I was just perceiving them this way for my own comfort. I assured them I was not afraid. They told me they knew who I was and that 2 of the beings were my relatives who had returned to this region prior to my birth. I can't remember who they claimed to be, and I didn't feel like I knew them, but I could have known them because of my physical bodily experiences. In the real world, one was like a protecting presence looking over me. I sensed a profound connection or loving feeling that was exquisite without the earthy emotions that had been shelled on the journey there. I was informed that there was a newer person present, possibly a baby who wasn't related to me. An entity who had no link to me, the other entities who knew me, or my physical self was also present. When the primary being said that one, there was no word to separate one from another, was learning, I perceived that being's energy to be weaker than the others. They weren't my mom or any of my other deceased relatives. If I were still alive, I would have asked. I became aware that I was still alive. I went because I honestly wanted to learn about both physical and non-physical aspects of places. I was everywhere in this location, which seems ludicrous in our planet's real world yet makes perfect sense when you're there. I began to comprehend that I possessed information from before I had a physical body and that I had been that location several times, just like everyone else. I understood there were only 2 things that mattered in the actual world. Love and knowledge had to be felt in the real world because there was no way to have sensations there. We enter the corporeal world and suffer for the purpose of love and knowledge, all else is secondary. Everyone is linked together. Because most suffering impairs one's ability to enjoy love and knowledge, it is critical to be kind when it is required. However, as we evolve through various physical forms, pain and suffering are also essential. We don't have an option at first. We shall be able to choose where we will go as our energy grows stronger. The main character said that I had learned enough and that I should now return to study love. Information regarding love is not always what we imagine in the real world. Love is defined by spirituality rather than lust or possession. Love connotes everlasting, judgment-free compassion. I was supposed to return and research the subject of love. Because they were with me and guiding me, I would know I had the ability to speak through this tone of thought that we were currently conversing with. I discovered that the location some people refer to as God was actually just our collective energy. We all contain this energy, even in the physical cosmos. However, once we are in the physical world, it is impossible to remember or recognize this, and it is also difficult to create love through religion. In the physical world, I was aware of this, but I still desired to experience love. I wanted to stay because I was remembering more about the location. I was pulled to the intimacy and connection that I couldn't physically experience here. Even though I wanted to stay, the others convinced me to return since they believed I could accomplish more here. It was analogous to sending someone your best wishes while physically seeing them. Aside from the fact that they were irrelevant to the actual location, I don't recall any additional information or knowledge being imparted. After that, I climbed onto my bed. When I noticed my kitties next to me, I awoke. As I saw myself from above, I was surprised that such a bizarre dream had occurred to me. As a result of this true and traumatic experience, my outlook on relationships, love, sex, and other issues has shifted. I no longer retain the same beliefs about what is right and bad or how to judge people. Following this dream, I discovered that less evolved beings from the other realm are more impulsive and lack control, yearning to come to this physical location in order to get stronger. On Earth, we generate energy. I was surprised to learn that I had been sleeping for several days because I had imagined it was a long dream. If it was true and I was up there meeting God, my mother would have been there, I reasoned. She wasn't, however. I didn't see any deceased living acquaintances. They continued. This could happen if you run into someone you think you know but have never met. Although our physical beings here are unable to comprehend what happens there remains some residual knowledge, which varies depending on how each individual's body's energy and physical capacities have developed. My academic and scientific friends would think I was insane, and my religious friends would burn me as a heretic if I told them about my experience, so I haven't mentioned it. However, I now regard it as a genuine experience. I know that they are both struggling to comprehend a physical world, mostly for insignificant reasons. This place is analogous to an amusement park in that we can encounter things that we couldn't in the previous location. The admission fees are birth and death, and the journey is unpredictable. On the other hand, really strong, elderly people can have an impact on this physical environment. The majority of us, though, are here to boost our energy levels through this tangible experience. Because I felt compelled to go out and buy books at a library sale, I went from not believing it to understanding and comprehending it, and, as a result, experiencing a paradigm-shifting epiphany. That was approximately 10 years ago. I came across several books that seemed interesting and paid a few dollars for them. I read the first page of one book and that was all. The Holographic Universe is a book written by Michael Talbot. We're here for 2 reasons, it said. Knowledge and love. I put the book in a box and threw it away since I couldn't continue reading. I went back and forth between panic, dread, unbelief, and denial. That synchronization appears to be inconceivable. Could anyone else have felt truth in such specific terms besides me? How did they learn? Did they recall where they came from? Now that I know what I felt was true and that I am not alone in understanding where we came from and where we are headed, I am thinking of buying a second copy of the book and rereading it from beginning to end. Now I try to live as kindly as possible. I struggle with sentiments and experiences in my physical body that are contrary to compassionate love. I give it my all every day. I fear death more than life, but I make do by loving others. The excess baggage I see in my fellow humans amuses me. Though it is true that money cannot buy love, we are here to learn this lesson over and over again. The entities in this location govern the physical world rather than those in the other. There will never be total perfection in either location. As we grow, ebb, and eventually recycle into new kinds of energy, we will either have more or less energy. That's the end of my story.